Hey guys, I'm the Dragonsbeard and I'm back with another Raid Shadow Legends video, and today we've got another crazy clan boss team for you featuring Demytha, and this one is going to be a little bit different because I'm actually on somebody else's account to do the showcase of the team. So I want to give a huge shout out to Resurrected Mods who invited me on very generously to showcase the team. This one is the Myth Fu, so you might have seen something similar to it over on DeadwoodJedi's channel. I've got two different DPS options which we'll show you today just so you can kind of see how this works and how it can scale to be a 1 key on pretty much every affinity. So a lot of neat things to see here. It's definitely one of the powerhouse comps that's going to compete with your top tier teams like the Bat Eater. Before we take a look at the team and the champions, I do want to give just a quick channel update. So we are at 766 subscribers, and my goal was to get to 1,000 in order to get into Raid's content creator program. So initially I had that set for a goal to achieve by the end of the year, and it's really starting to come into focus. Perhaps it might even be faster than that. So whether you've came over here from Scratch's channel or perhaps from DeadwoodJedi's channel, maybe you've just seen one of the Demytha tunes that I've had on the channel recently, whatever led you to here, if you've taken the time to subscribe, I just want to give a sincere and heartfelt thank you. You're really helping the channel grow. So if you can maybe share this with your clanmates, and perhaps if you're not subscribed already, there's about 85% of you out there who are watching the videos that aren't subscribed yet. Hop down there, click the subscribe button, turn on notifications. You'll be able to see stuff as soon as I have it available for you. Before we dig deep into the champions, I do want to share some credit to the people who absolutely deserve it. So over on DeadwoodJedi's channel, the first version of this team that I ever saw featured Jintoro as the DPS by utilizing his really nifty turn meter boosting passive. And that was the brainchild of Saphyrra, so he helped figure out the speeds initially that were going to make this team work. And then over in the Raid Chat 77 Discord, there's a lot of helpful people over there that were able to get this working on Spirit. So harleQuinn was the one who helped Resurrected Mods achieve speeds that put Eris going first immediately after the second AoE. And what we want to have happen is that Eris is taking that speed debuff off immediately as it goes off. We only want to take one tick of that spirit debuff in order to make sure that the team doesn't fall completely behind. So she helped with the creation of that team. And then I think that Saphyrra's even gone even a little farther and figured out the relationships between, you know, how fast does Fu-shan need to be versus Eris versus Seeker, and all those sort of behind the scenes relationships that make sure that one champ doesn't jump ahead of the other. So if you go over into the DeadwoodJedi Discord, over in the new tunes around the world, or maybe even the theory crafting channel, you'll be able to see some of the stuff that is super in depth with this. I'm going to show you the calculator at the end so you can kind of see what the speed ranges look like, but that's where you can find a lot of those resources. So the first champion we're going to be taking a look at is Fu-shan himself. So he's part of that Myth Fu name. And what he's doing is a lot of different things in this team. So the first of which is he's going to be our leader. And he's going to be providing that speed in all battles, which is even better than Deacon's 19%. He's bringing in 24%. And since all battles auras are the only ones that work in Clan Boss, it really helps us out by reducing the speeds that are needed. The second thing that he's doing is something that Deacon also does, which is bringing decreased defense. So he's going to have a pretty high uptime of that. It's part of his hard-hitting ability, so you're going to want to use this ability anyway. So if you choose to build him with accuracy, then he's going to be able to keep that up on his own. The third thing, and this is probably the most important for being able to run the same team against all affinities, is that he is protecting Eris. So by having him as our leader, and by making sure he does not have the Steadfast Mastery, if we bring Eris in as another Force champion and give her the Steadfast Mastery, put her in like the last position of the champion selection, then the clan boss is going to prefer, when it's Spirit, to attack him instead of Eris. And the way that this team works is that Eris can cleanse anybody on the team to take the stun away, as long as it's not herself. So our second champion that we're looking at is going to be the other half of the namesake, the Myth out of the Myth Fu, and this is Demytha herself. So she is our protector, that's her role in the team, and she is here to provide this 3-turn block damage, and she's going to have it ready every single time the clan boss takes their turn. So she goes last in the turn order, she throws up that block damage and makes sure that the entire team survives, and that's going to last for all 50 turns. And her other role is to be the extender of Eris's increased speed debuff. So with that being a 2-turn duration and a 3-turn cooldown, she's able to extend that out to where it's up 100% of the time. She is not a very good damage dealer, so don't worry too much about her offensive stats. The main thing you're going to need to worry about her as far as stats is her speed. So she needs to be very fast in order to run at that 3-to-1 ratio. We are running her at 292 speed with 3 speed sets. And you can see she's not crit capped, but she has a decent amount of crit damage on there. Again, damage is not her role. Her role is to enable the rest of the comp to work. So our second champion that we're looking at is going to be the other half of the namesake, the myth out of the myth Fu, and this is Demytha herself. So she is our protector. That's her role in the team, and she is here to provide this 3-turn block damage, and she's going to have it ready every single time the clan boss takes their turn. So she goes last in the turn order, she throws up that block damage and makes sure that the entire team survives. And that's going to last for all 50 turns. And her other role is to be the extender of Eris's increased speed debuff. So with that being a 2-turn duration and a 3-turn cooldown, she's able to extend that out to where it's up 100% of the time. She is not a very good damage dealer, so don't worry too much about her offensive stats. The main thing you're going to need to worry about her as far as stats is her speed. So she needs to be very fast in order to run at that 3-to-1 ratio. We are running her at 292 speed with 3 speed sets. And you can see she's not crit capped, but she has a decent amount of crit damage on there. Again, damage is not her role. Her role is to enable the rest of the comp to work. So our third champion is Heiress, and she's here as both our cleanser and our increased speed buffer. So that's both a part of her A2. So she's got the increased speed, 3-turn cooldown, 2-turn duration, and again, Demytha extends that. So that increased speed is going to be up 100% of the time. As soon as it's falling off, she has her cooldown available to where she's going to replenish it again. And then since she's going first in the turn order, she's going to be able to immediately cleanse the affinity debuff when that goes out, and then also the stun as long as it's on anybody else in the team other than herself, which is the reason why Fu-shan is here. So the other cool thing that she has as a part of her kit is this counterattack. So the passive is going to make it to where as soon as anybody on the team gets hit 50 times throughout the fight, then she's able to put out that counterattack. If you have fast enough toxic gear and you're not running her alongside another poisoner, then she is a great candidate to put in that toxic set. For her stats, she needs to be fast as well because she's the other 3-to-1 champion. So she's at 267 speed. We've got some decent attack on her for as low as her base attack is. We've got her crit cap and we've got some crit damage on her. She does not necessarily need to have accuracy, so I think the reason why her accuracy is so high is because the speeds that are on her accuracy banner. So just disregard that. You don't need to put accuracy on her for her to be able to do her job. So the fourth champion is Seeker. So he is here for 2 very big reasons. The first of which is his turn meter fill, so that's part of his A2. And that 30% turn meter boost, which happens every single turn because of his extra turn mechanic, is really huge on bringing the speeds under 300 for the 3-to-1 champions in the team. So Demytha and Eris would need to be a lot higher in terms of speeds if Seeker wasn't here in order to provide that turn meter boost. He's able to also keep increased attack up for the entirety of the fight, so he has that ready every single turn, and he's also getting extended, and that's really big because we've got so many attack damage dealers in the team here. He does hit decently hard too. Even though he's a defense champion, his damage is based off of attack on his A1, so he can smack, he can put up some good numbers. We've got him at 184 speed, 3.6k attack, almost 3.7. He's crit capped and he's got some decent crit damage. You do not need to have accuracy in his build because he can't land his provoke against the clan boss anyway. So in the last slot for the damage dealer, we're going to be using 2 different options. You saw Jintoro in Deadwood's video. We are going to be bringing in a very similar champion in the sense that he's got decreased defense and weaken, and that's Dracomorph. And he's also got poison in his kit, so he's like one of your top tier options to use. We kind of have to throw him in here. It's actually funny because the clan boss today that we're recording this against is Force for Ultra Nightmare, and you're going to be able to see that he actually does very good damage even with weak affinity. So just keep that in mind when we're looking at the damage output. If we're running against one of the other affinities, he's going to do so much more. He's got that weaken on his A3. Decreased defense is going to be redundant on top of Fu-shan, but he's got that in case you don't put accuracy on Fu-shan. He's got the poisons, and then he just hits hard. So the other substitute damage dealer that we're running is going to be the Fat Man. So Farrakhan the Fat. He is built in a toxic set just because he's taken the place of Draco. So we're going to have him putting up poisons from his A2 as well as the HP burn. So he needs accuracy for this, but he doesn't for the toxic set. And then, for ally attack, he's able to, help the overall team damage just by putting up that increased crit damage buff, which is going to get extended, and then also having the ally attack to where you're going to get some extra A1 damage from the team. The team is mostly built at 100% crit rate, so the crit rate buff is kind of lost on that, but what we're going to see is that even without another poisoner in the team aside from himself and that toxic set, he's going to keep the bar decently full and do almost as good of a job, if not better, than what Draco does. He definitely does better than Draco when we're talking about weak affinity. So they are both built at 171 speed. Farrakhan the Fat's at 4k attack. He's almost crit capped. And then he's got decent crit damage. And then again, he needs that accuracy in order to put up his debuffs. So for masteries on the team, you're kind of looking at one of two different options. So for the offense tree, it's always going to be the same. You're going to go down to either War Master or Giant Slayer, depending on how many hits your damage dealer has. You're going to want to pick up this Heart of Glory Mastery just because after the first couple turns, the team with block damage is able to stay at full health for the entirety of the fight. So that's kind of the reason why you want that mastery. And then for the second tree, you're going to want to choose between kind of two different options. So since the stun does go out in this team and then gets cleansed, you could put the Deterrence Mastery from the defense tree in order to get those counterattacks. But for the champions that you want to be able to have debuffs, you might want to run the support tree just to get the extra accuracy, as well as Laura Steel for extra stats. So say you're running Cruel Gear or Speed Gear, that can really help. And then also to get Sniper and Master Hexer for extending those debuffs or increasing their chance. So, you could choose defense tree for the extra counterattacks. You're really only going to get that 3, 4, maybe 5 times throughout the fight just because you're dealing with a finite number of stuns. But then for your debuffers, you could probably run the support tree just to get that accuracy and the other bonuses that I just mentioned. So for masteries on the team, you're kind of looking at one of two different options. So for the offense tree, it's always going to be the same. You're going to go down to either War Master or Giant Slayer, depending on how many hits your damage dealer has. You're going to want to pick up this Heart of Glory Mastery just because after the first couple turns, the team with block damage is able to stay at full health for the entirety of the fight. So that's kind of the reason why you want that mastery. And then for the second tree, you're going to want to choose between kind of two different options. So since the stun does go out in this team and then gets cleansed, you could put the Deterrence Mastery from the defense tree in order to get those counterattacks. But for the champions that you want to be able to have debuffs, you might want to run the support tree just to get the extra accuracy, as well as Laura Steel for extra stats. So say you're running Cruel Gear or Speed Gear, that can really help. And then also to get Sniper and Master Hexer for extending those debuffs or increasing their chance. So, you could choose defense tree for the extra counterattacks. You're really only going to get that 3, 4, maybe 5 times throughout the fight just because you're dealing with a finite number of stuns. But then for your debuffers, you could probably run the support tree just to get that accuracy and the other bonuses that I just mentioned. Alright, so normally I would show you what the AI configuration looks like at the beginning of the fight in order to make it full auto, but I made a mistake. I was so excited to see this in action that as soon as I hopped on Resurrected's account, I ran a Draco key and I ran a Fat Man key, and then I ran him out of both of his keys without looking at the AI settings first. So I don't really want to hop on and spend someone else's gems just for the sake of a video. So in this case, I'll talk you through the AI settings at the end when we're looking at the calculator. But I'm going to go ahead and play the run and kind of talk you through the way that it falls into sync, because we've got just a couple turns in the beginning before you start to see what you would expect. And then by the end of turn 2, I think it has everything in order. So what we're opening it up with is just the increased speed and then the extension in order to get that going, get everybody up to the speeds that they need. And then once the clan boss comes around and does that affinity debuff, in this case it's going to be the decreased attack debuff, then you'll see that Eris will start to go first in the turn order, and she was immediately going to cleanse that off with her A2. So here that comes. There is her exhortation. She's taken off that debuff, and then it's going to cycle back around with everybody's turns, and then by the time it gets back around to Demytha, then she is going to be able to put that block damage up immediately before the stun, and then that cycle will continue for the rest of the fight. So it's Force Clan Boss, so Seeker is going to be the one that's preferred to get hit here. There we go. And then since Eris is first, she immediately takes that off, and then he's able to get his turn away without losing it. So this cycle is going to continue to where it's Eris at the top, Demytha at the end, and then the rest of the fight, all 50 turns, the team will be fully protected. So since this is a long fight, I'm going to let it play through, and then I will join you at the end to kind of look at what the final output looks like. All right, guys, here we are at the end. We're looking at almost 77 million damage, which is nuts to think without a weakening team that we're able to do that much damage. So the lead damage dealer, of course, is going to be Fu-shan. He's running at 24 million. Very good damage from him. We've got the Fat Man and his Toxic set at 20.6. We've got Seeker bringing in 10.5, and then Eris with those counterattacks, 12.6 million damage. Very respectable from her as a rare champion. So I was actually impressed to see how much damage his Demytha was doing. So 8.7 million. My comp was only doing like 5 or 6 million damage, so very good to see that from her. All around, great team. Against weak affinity, I do want to show you the Draco damage here at the end. So he, with weak hits on all of his poisons and stuff, was still able to put up almost 21 million damage and get into that 1 key range. And this would be his worst affinity. In fact, this team's worst affinity with Draco, because you've got weak hits from both Seeker and from Dracomorph. So on all the rest of the affinities, you should see nothing but upside in terms of overall damage. I think I saw a key that Resurrected showed me with the Draco comp doing 88 million on Ultra Nightmare, which is a very, very good team that's, you know, up there in Bat Eater or better damage levels. All right, so I've got the speeds plugged into the calculator already, and I do want to walk you through what you need to set up for those AI settings since I made that mistake. So we are going to turn off Fu-shan's A2, and that's because his other abilities are going to deal more damage. So just go into the custom AI and have it set up to where he never uses his A2. So for Demytha, we've got her in the calculator as Godseeker Aniri here. What you're going to need to do when you're plugging her in the calculator is just to reduce that cooldown on her A3 to 3 turns. That will match how Demytha works. For her AI, all you're going to need to do is set her first priority to be her A3, which is the block damage ability, and then set her second priority to be the extension, which is her A2. So you don't need to do any delays or anything like that because she's using those on cooldown from the beginning as long as she has those first and second priorities set. For Eris, you do need to give her a first priority on her A2. There's this weird thing she does where if she already has that increased speed buff, then she won't refresh it. So you just want to lock her in with that first priority on her A2 so that she uses that every time it comes around on cooldown. And then for Seeker, in order for him to do that 1 turn delay that he shows here in the calculator, you just need to set his A1 as his opener, and then after that, he will do everything he's supposed to. For Dracomorph or for the Fat Man, you don't really need to tweak their AI. You can if you want to, but they're going to kind of do what we need them to on regular cooldowns. So as you're plugging in your individual speeds in order to make sure that it's going to function the way that it's supposed to, here's the turn order that you're looking for, kind of starting from turn count 2. You want Eris to go at the top, and she's going to be cleansing that affinity debuff right away, even if it's Spirit. And then you're going to want to see Demytha, in this case she looks like Godseeker, throwing up the block damage directly before that clan boss turn. And then that cycle will repeat itself all the way for all 50 turns. If you kick it over onto Nightmare, you're looking at the same thing. Eris at the top, and then Demytha at the bottom throughout the fight. And then this also works on Brutal at those same speeds. So it's an amazingly flexible comp, just like Bat Eater, to where you're going to be able to kick it on full auto, let it go and let it do its thing. So you don't have to worry about affinity, you don't have to worry about difficulty. You can just run that same team and let it rip and then just collect your chest the next day. Guys, that's going to be it for the Myth-Fu team. I hope you enjoyed seeing some other damage dealer options other than Jintoro. If you haven't seen Deadwood's video yet, I'm going to link that in the description so you can see his variation of the Myth-Fu. And then, you know, thanks again to Resurrected Mods for letting me spend a couple hours on his account. I was able to hop in there and check out the team, check out his champions, and get all the footage that I needed in order to put this video together. So thanks again for stepping out while I was doing that. Saphyrra for coming up with that initial Myth-Fu tune, and then also to harleQuinn for getting resurrected speeds, which were able to make that team work on Spirit. So if you haven't hopped over to the Raid Chat 77 Discord, come join us. There's some really cool people that are in there. Sharky's in there lurking. I'm in there as well. And then we've got some of the other big content creators like Hades that occasionally will make an appearance. So come have a talk, and maybe we can put together what the next big thing in the community is. Until then, I've been the Dragon's Beard, and thanks for watching.